Greetings, Elder Blacklight here. Today's video is going to be showing how the mass manipulator of the masses of black people divide and conquer. We're going to be using some clips from pre-Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, the leaders, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We're going to start off with the prosperous farmlands. Then we're going to go into Malcolm, betrayal. Let us begin. And then, Nipsey Hussle, his trial on Court TV. They're finally showing it. Before we get started, we'd like to say, you better listen up quick, because you might not know what you might get. Sugar is sugar, salt is salt. If you don't get this message, it ain't my fault. Let's get on with it.
Today is not unusual.
Well, right now things are coming along real well. We have several things that we intend to do yet that will kind of cut down on this labor problem. It's always a problem with getting qualified help. Everybody wants to work, but basically people don't really know how to farm the way farming is done today. Sure, I've always worked hard, but it's good to know that what you're working for now is going to someday accomplish something, or has a real meaning, hitting the same place.
But there was one man who did go another way, and he is well known to us. Malcolm X. National Secretary John Ali gives his views.
Many people now are racing Malcolm X as a revered man, but he was good when he was with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like all the rest of us. And then he broke away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because of his loss of power as being set down as a minister. And he broke off, and then he took up with the same people that he'd been talking about who'd been enslaving the black man, which was the white man. And so he was an enemy to them because Malcolm had been teaching about the white man. He didn't love them any more than he loved them before he went with him. But it was only because of his fall from power, and this has been the downfall of black people throughout history, where we become envy and jealous of one another. Mr. Muhammad was not jealous of Malcolm. Malcolm was a student of Mr. Muhammad. And because of Mr. Muhammad, Malcolm became Malcolm. And he was converted in prison. And even in his book, if you read his book, he acknowledges that everything that he learned from Mr. Muhammad, except for the last chapter that he wrote when he broke away from Mr. Muhammad, because he wrote the book while with Mr. Muhammad.
Is the Nipsey Hussle murder trial. Defendant Eric Holder is accused of fatally shooting rapper Nipsey Hussle outside of a clothing store that Hussle owned back in March of 2019. Now, here's what's happening. The trial is going on right now. The judge in this case ruled that cameras could only be in the trial during the opening statements and the closing arguments. So, what we're going to do today is show those opening statements. But before we get to the prosecution's opening statement, let's get you caught up on the case with Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter.
All my life, I've been grinding all my life, all my life, been grinding all my life, sacrifice, hustle paid the price.
Nipsey Hussle, the artist in this video, earned his first Grammy nod from the album this song originated from. He was also known as Ermias Ascadome and had been gaining notoriety for tracks like this on his mixtapes.
Hold me down through these troubled times, be another victim to my stubborn pride. Stuck in the ground, look me in my eyes, told me all my lies.
In his rise to fame, he began directing some of his energy towards business ventures. This Marathon clothing store, which is now closed, was one of these ventures. It sits right up against Crenshaw Boulevard, the cultural spine for LA's black community. The larger area where this store lives, South Central, was also Nipsey's home. And on March 31st, 2019, in this parking lot, in the community where Nipsey lived, shots erupted and Nipsey Hussle was killed.
in his neighborhood. He was respected. And he was just 33 years old.
The shooter was Eric Holder. Like Nipsey, he was a local of this community.
They both grew up in South Los Angeles. They both grew up in a neighborhood of hard-working men and women, but also a neighborhood that was claimed by one of the largest criminal street gangs in Los Angeles County. That gang was the Rolling Crips.
Being part of this gang affected the direction of each of their lives and dictated the interactions each of them had with gang members. It was this way of life that set off a chain reaction of events in front of Nipsey's Marathon clothing store.
In the gang world and in the criminal world, there are images from movies, Scarface, where rats or snitches have gotten their just desserts, so to speak. There was a conversation between Mr. Holder and Mr. Astrodome minutes before Mr. Holder shot and killed Mr. Astrodome. And you will hear from at least two different witnesses that that conversation had something to do with snitching. There's a range of consequences for people who snitch, but no gang member wants to be considered a snitch.
Not long after this conversation, Holder indisputably fired upon Nipsey.
On March 31st, 2019, Eric Ronald Holder Jr. shot and killed Nipsey Hussle. But he was shot literally from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head.
As a result, Holder was charged with 1 count of murder, 4 other felony counts that correspond to the injuries of 2 bystanders, and 1 count of possession of a firearm by a felon. The state says Holder's actions were premeditated and deliberate.
You're going to hear some evidence that he had plenty of opportunity to think about what he was going to do before he did what he did. And I make that point because we charge not just murder, but premeditated and deliberate murder.
On the other hand, the defense says Holder was provoked.
So the heat of passion in this case relates to snitching, an accusation by Nipsey Hussle that just said Eric Holder Jr. was a snitch. That so inflamed and enraged Mr. Holder. The evidence will show that without thinking, a few minutes later, here 9 minutes or so.
Let's stop it right here. See, the same technology that the government used to fragment the Nation of Islam is the same technology that they're using to fragment the Bloods and the Crips. So all you street organizations, local grassroots organizations, know that they will send in a agent or provocateur into your group to report back your progress. This is going to be a part 2, and we're going to get into this video, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the technology, black light.